Hi, everybody. In this video, we are going to be talking about our writing unit on narratives. If you are new to middle school, you have not written a narrative before. For me, if you are not, you have written narratives many times before. So some of this might sound like it's repetitive, but it's always good to hear things over and over again. All right, so we are going to be writing narratives. Narratives are just another way of saying a story that teaches you something, a story that has a moral at the end of it, a story that made you grow somehow. So you're going to be focusing in on one event. All right, one event. You don't want to make it too broad because then it's going to be very difficult for your reader to follow the events as they occur. All right, so what I'm asking you to do first is to brainstorm at least 3 different stories that you could write. All right, that you could write on. You know enough about them that you could write on them. All right, and this is going to have to be from the first person point of view. So this means it's going to be from your point of view. You're going to be using words like I, me, my, we, our. It is totally okay to use that when you're writing a story because this should be a story that's happened to you, that you observed, that you know a lot about. So I want you to use that first person point of view, okay? You do not have to be the main character of your story. However, you do need to know the main character of your story very well. Could you make this story up? Could it be fake? Absolutely. I wouldn't know. I would say that you probably want to try to make it more realistic. So what we call that is realistic fiction, something that really could happen. So maybe you don't want to write a story about, fairies and vampires. That is creative writing. That's not narrative writing. Narratives tend to focus on events that have really happened before. So if you are not someone who likes to just come up with ideas off the top of your head and put those into writing, then I would say you probably want to pick something that has happened or that you observed happen, or you know that this happened to somebody that you can go back and you can talk to them and get details about this event. Okay, so think about that. It also should be something that you learned something from, right? This happened to you and it changed you in some way. This event happened to your best friend and it changed them in some way, or it taught you something about your best friend, or it taught you something about life. Okay, so you want to keep these in mind. Some ideas that a lot of people often write on are maybe like the first time they got a brother or sister, so their parents had a baby and they weren't an only child anymore. Getting a pet because it teaches you responsibility. Going on vacation or out of the country for the first time because it teaches you about the world. Maybe failing a test for the first time because it taught you that you no longer can rely on just knowing what you know. You actually need to study. Maybe switching schools for the first time. Maybe the death of a family member. Maybe moving to a new country or a new state. These are all events that can really profoundly change someone. Getting hurt, broken bones type of a thing. Winning a tournament, it shows you that your hard work pays off. All of these are really good ideas. So I want you guys to go ahead and if you haven't already done this, pause this video now and do this brainstorming and really put some effort into it. Really think about it because you are going to be choosing one of these. All right, so at this point, I want you to choose what you're going to be writing your narrative on. And if you feel like, I really don't even know how I'm going to write this narrative, I don't want you to worry about that right now. Right now, all I want you to worry about is how this story, what are the different parts of this story, okay? So in this diagram here, on your slide, you are going to be putting in the different parts of your story. You are welcome to pause this video after I explain each of the different parts and go fill them in for your story. I would actually highly recommend doing that. Okay. All right. So first things first, you're going to want to name your story. So of those 3 that you brainstormed, pick one. And what would you call that story? What would the title be? You're not married to this title, you guys. That means that you can go back and change this title at any time. So just write something down that you think portrays the idea of your story, okay? All right, first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to come down here to the setting part. This is also called the exposition. So you're going to hear me call it exposition. You're going to hear me call it setting. And here you're going to want to tell me where this story takes place. Does it take place in your house? Does it take place in Mexico? Does it take place in Italy? Does it take place in, your backyard? Does it take place in your classroom? Does it take place in your mind? right? I've had students write that as well, and it was really cool. So where does this take place? Just, you can use bullet points here and write that down. And then I also want you to tell me who was there. Who was there? Try to be as specific as possible. Obviously, I know I don't give you a lot of space, but you can always stretch your text box to come out here a little bit more, and that's fine with me, okay? So who was there? Obviously, if you weren't there, you need to write who was there. If you were there, write yourself and then write the other people that were there. Even if they're insignificant, I want you to write down who was there, okay? So you can pause that and go ahead and fill in your exposition or your setting for your story now. All right, next you're going to be talking about the rising action. The rising action is really important for a story because without it, your story is not interesting. The rising action is where you're going to have conflict and complications. All right. This story has to have a conflict. It has to have something going on where your reader's going, well, how's this going to work out in the end? Because otherwise we're not going to want to keep reading this story. And obviously it's not going to have taught you anything if there wasn't a conflict that you had to face. All right. So the conflict could be something as easy as you're the new kid and you don't know anybody. Conflict could be that you broke your bone and, how are you going to play basketball again? The conflict could be that you got this dog, but you know nothing about taking care of dogs, or you got this goldfish and you know nothing about taking care of a goldfish. Or it could be that you met this girl, but you guys really didn't hit it off very well. And so you wanted to be friends with her, but then it didn't really work out. Or same with the guy, you meet these group of guys and you don't really hit it off with them. And you're just wondering, this is the group that everyone told me I should be in, but I don't want to be in it. So I want you to think about what your conflict is in this rising action number 1 here. What's the problem? What's the conflict in your story? What is the problem? Go ahead and pause this and write that in there now. Now that you've come up with the problem, you need to come up with some complications. What is making the solving of this problem not happen? What's slowing down the solution to this conflict? Maybe, so let's take our dog, our getting a pet here, for example, okay? You don't really know anything about having a dog. One of the complications is that your parents also don't know anything about having a dog. They've never had a pet before. This is your first pet. So that's a complication, and you can write that down as a complication. I want you guys to have at least one complication for your story that you're going to be telling me about. What is complicating? What is slowing down the solution to this problem? All right. If you can have more than one, if there's more than one complication, I think that would be amazing. And that would really help strengthen your story a lot. So go ahead and pause this now and write down at least one, possibly 2 complications in Rising Action 2 and Rising Action 3. All right, here we are at the very tip of what I call our little witch's hat here, okay, or our plot diagram. The very tippity top is called the climax, all right? The climax of a story is often very difficult for people to understand because a lot of people think, oh, the climax just comes right in the middle of the story. I open up the middle of a story and I'm going to read the words on that page and that's the climax. That's absolutely 100% wrong. Wrong, you guys. The climax of the story is the turning point. It's the point in the story where the reader goes, oh, this conflict is about to be solved. Something's going to happen to this main character that's going to change them from who they were at the beginning of this story. And it's at that moment. So let's take our getting a pet, for example. Okay. You don't know anything about raising a pet. Your parents don't know anything about raising a pet. Your pet's a dog. And finally, you are just worried that you're going to have to give this dog back to the shelter that you saved it from because you just don't know how to take care of it. It's becoming so overwhelming for you. And lo and behold, you're taking it for a walk. Your tears are running down your face because you're thinking, I'm going to have to get rid of this dog that I wanted so much. And a stranger sees you and stops you and says, hey, are you okay? And you just pour your heart out to them. And the stranger says, well, guess what? I'm a veterinarian. And I'm your neighbor, and I'd be happy to help you learn how to take care of your dog. Do you guys see how right there in that moment, that's a turning point? Everything changes from that conflict. And now the reader is starting to see that there's a solution. There's a resolution. That's your climax. It also should be a highly emotional part of your story. So what I'd like for you guys to do right now is to pause this and to think about what the turning point in your story is. At what point in your story did you see that the conflict had a resolution? Even if it's not a positive one, you guys. There aren't always happy endings, right? But I want you to think about that now. So go ahead and pause that and take some time to really think on it and type it into your Climax box here. All right, you guys, following action is everything that happens pretty much after the climax, okay, and before the resolution. Now, I have 2 boxes for following action here, and that's because if you want to put in more information, that's fine, but you should at least fill in 1 box with something that happens after the climax. So our veterinarian comes in and says, I'm your neighbor, I'm happy to help you take care of your dog. And what happens, the following action is you guys set up a time where 3 days a week you go out into the front yard with your neighbor and you guys work on training your new dog. And in the meantime, the veterinarian is also helping you learn caring techniques for taking care of your dog. And you keep doing that for the next 3 months. That's the following action. Okay. So go ahead and pause this video and write in just a couple details. Again, use bullet points here. This is just a brainstorming. Write in some following action that happens in your own story. Okay, finally, we come to the very end, the resolution. This is the part where you're going to tell your reader what you learned from this experience. How did this experience change you and change your life? How? Or how did it change your character's life? What can your reader learn from reading this story? Because the whole purpose of writing, you guys, is to try and impart wisdom, try to give wisdom to other people from your own experiences or from experiences that you know of. All right? It's the main reason why you guys watch TV and you watch shows and you go on social media. You're learning from other people and their experiences. So what are we learning from you in this personal narrative? What are we learning from you? I want you guys to go ahead and stop this video now. I am done after all. Stop this video and go in and write out your resolution to your story. What did you learn? What did your reader learn? How did your life change?